Chapter 10. In the Game. When I was younger, my mother's friend Thelma used to come over to our apartment all the time. I remembered Thelma because she always used to cheer my mother on when she was giving me a beating. "You better go ahead and teach him a lesson, Ned." She had two daughters of her own, so when they came over, my sisters and I would have a sleepover with them in the living room. But my big thrill didn't come from sleeping so close to girls that weren't my sisters. It came when I walked into the bathroom one morning while Thelma was getting dressed. She was pulling up her stockings, and I noticed that she didn't have any panties on. It took her a couple of seconds to realize that I was staring between her legs, but by that time, I had seen all I needed to. That was my first look at pussy, but it wasn't until my last visit home from Children's Village that I actually got my first piece. The woman was 26 and lived in the same building as me in School Street. I would see her sometimes. She used to talk to me in the elevator about how her husband was fucking up and wasn't home a lot. Then one day she just invited me up to her apartment. I was 14, right in the middle of puberty, and was sprouting out kind of big from all of the running and working out I was doing in group home. But I was surprised that she kept smiling at me because I know I must have looked like a straight lumberjack with my CV outfit on. When we got inside her place, she started acting kind of funny. Said the kind of pain medication or something she was taking was making her horny. And when she pulled me into the kitchen and started kissing me, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I never had sex before. I hadn't even been around girls that much. In CV, they had weekend dances with some girls from a local group home, but I rarely went. So when this grown woman started touching me, I got thirsty right away. Then she took me into her bedroom. She was wearing a long red dress, and when she turned to me and pulled it up, I saw that she had stockings on with no drawers. "You see this?" she asked me. "Oh shit," I thought. "I guess I'm a man now." I was nervous as hell. She got me on top of her, and I did it. Real quick, and almost died in the process. But I was in the game. Nothing was ever said between us after that day. She wouldn't even speak to me in the elevator anymore. Then a few years later, when I brought my man over to her house to try to show her off to him, she fronted on me, claiming that nothing ever happened. Looking back, I think that she kind of took advantage of me that day, but fuck it, I enjoyed it. After that, I became a wolf for the pussy. Who? What? Where? I was a fucking hound. At that age, you had to talk to a girl for like 6 hours to get any action. Once you played around and wrestled with her all day, then maybe in the hallway on her way back home she would give you a chance. But there always had to be a lot of touching and kissing, and there was still no guarantees that you would get in her drawers. "But I'm saying, Ma," you had to say over and over. When you got older, you could just say, "Take it off, girl," and get in the bed. But as a kid, you had to start rubbing the neck, massaging the shoulders, and then slowly move down. Slowly. Very slowly. I remember having so much trouble unhooking a girl's bra. "Ugh, you need some help?" the chicks would ask me, and my game would get knocked down a few notches. Then one day I sat and just looked at the class. "Oh, that's how it goes. You pull it together first, twist, then push it out with your thumb. Ping!" Then the challenge became to open a bra with one hand through the shirt. Niggas like me weren't getting much love anyway, though. In 1985, girls were on that menudo shit. Those were the purple rain days when you needed a long jerry curl with the ruffled collar to get any attention. Spanish dudes, Puerto Ricans were the only ones getting pussy. If you were light skinned, maybe you had a shot with the honeys. But regular guys like me were assed out. You needed the wavy hair and the green eyes. I had none of that. So I had to run up in the hood rats who hung out in the street, find the dirty bitches who didn't mind fucking a nigga outside. They would fuck in the park, on the roof, in the staircase. If it's on, it's on. Ain't nobody coming, girl. Let's just do it right here, real quick. The rats always kept it real. Chapter 11, 1985. Silver shadow, glowing shadow, shining brightly for all the world to see. In the fall of 1985, I was released from Children's Village. A few months before, I had decided to obey as many rules as possible so that Mrs. Santos and the other social workers would see consistent behavior and recommend my release. The 18-month maximum was coming up anyway, but it was time. I had outgrown the place. My mother was hesitant about having me home again, but I think she knew that if she didn't take me back now, she would lose her last opportunity to ever have a relationship with me. I was 14 years old, and between Andress and here, I hadn't been home much since I was 10. The first thing I did was find me a new dog. I stole Blackie out of a junkyard. He was the first dog that I ever really called my own. When I saw him, he was young, couldn't have been more than 9 months old, but he was huge, and I wanted him. He was behind this old metal fence, and I didn't see any sign of the owner. When me and my friend Jose came near him, he started barking like crazy. But after dealing with so many strays, I had learned one thing: be patient. It's okay, boy. It's okay. I kept inching up closer and closer. When he finally stopped barking, I put my hand through the fence and started to pet him. That's a good boy. I petted him for over an hour, and when I saw that he was comfortable with me, I slowly climbed over. Jose thought that I had lost my mind, but I knew exactly what I was doing. I just had to figure a way of getting him out of there. The fence was old, but there was no way of getting around it. I played with him some more, and the dog slowly started to trust me. But I figured the owner would be back soon, so I needed to make my move. I knew that if I wanted to pull this off and not have the dog bite me, I had to be fast. One, two, three. I just grabbed the dog real tight and pushed him right through one of the holes in the fence onto the sidewalk. The dog didn't know what was happening, but he landed on his feet. I quickly scrambled back over too, and then me and Jose just started running. When the dog started following us, I knew he was mine. Come on, Blackie. I didn't know what his name was, but I just said, fuck it. Your name is Blackie now, boy. I loved that dog. I fed him, I cared for him. My mother was still bugging about having animals in the apartment, so when she kicked Blackie out, I left with him and went straight to the roof. I brought some more blankets up there, and just like I did with so many strays before, made me and Blackie a home. Blackie wouldn't ever disappoint me. He was the love and affection and companionship I needed, and now that he was mine, I knew that I would never be alone again. Yonkers High School was the baddest school in the city. It was probably the baddest school in all of Westchester County because of all the projects. School Street, Slowbomb, Mulford, Cottage, Ravine, all fed into two schools, Yonkers High and Gordon. And Yonkers High always got the worst of it. Every thug and hood rat in almost a 5 mile radius had their name called out for attendance in that place. I had gotten used to the group homeschool, so this was a whole new world to me, and being a freshman, the lowest on the totem pole, was not what you wanted to be, so I went in with attitude. I'm straight out of my second group home, man. What? Y'all niggas ain't got nothing on me. That only lasted me a few days after I saw how serious about gun carrying some of the upperclassmen were. But the first week of freshman year, I did get up enough game to join the track team. I ran relay, long distance, and 100-yard dash. I even jumped hurdles. I was smoking everybody except this one big cock diesel dude named Drew. He was a senior and was the only kid faster than me. The coach of the team never cared about how I was doing in school, though, so when my lateness to classes slowly started turning into full-blown absences, coach still let me compete in the meets. You better believe I showed up for school on those days, running sneakers in hand. See, after a few weeks at Yonkers High, my biggest concern wasn't the track or classes, but the fact that I was still broke and there was no way in the world I was going to be in high school either hungry or looking raggedy. This was the real fucking world. There was no quartermaster around that you could hustle for new clothes. There were no more spelling bees to win that could get you something different to eat for lunch. If there was anything like that, maybe I would have stayed in school a little longer, but within a month, I realized that there weren't many ways for me to get what I wanted. My mother couldn't help me with the money, neither could my grandmother. So I just made the decision that whatever I had to do to get some fucking money, I was going to do it. I was going to take control. I was nervous as hell the day I committed my first robbery, but I just said, fuck it. If you got money and I don't, it's on. I'm taking yours. My first victim was a lady walking out of that same finest supermarket in the square where I got busted for stealing those Intamin's pies. I jumped out of some bushes on the side of the building, snatched her pocketbook off her shoulder, and ran. She never knew it, but I had been sitting in those bushes all day waiting for who I thought would be the perfect person. From the second I started robbing, I took the activity very seriously. I watched a lot of TV and knew that the more careful you were about who you robbed and the smarter you were about when you went out, the bigger the payoff. So, if I had to lay low in the bushes somewhere for a few hours to win big, then that's what I would do. But the day I robbed that lady, I also got real lucky. It must have been the 15th of the month of something. The day most of the women in Yonkers cashed their government checks because she had over $1,000 in $20 bills in her purse. $1,000 for my first robbery? At 14 years old? I was the man. The first thing I did was go to the pet store and buy Blackie a new leather collar and a harness. Then I bought myself my first pair of Timberland boots, some butter-colored ones from the store in Getty Square. They looked official. This was also when Levi's jeans were big, so I bought a few pairs of those and then topped my shopping off with a checkerboard bomber jacket and matching rabbit hat. Man, listen, life was good. The next day, I went to school rocking my new gear, and at lunchtime, I went around the corner and bought a huge turkey sandwich from the store and brought it to the lunchroom with me. Yeah, what's up? Now I got what y'all got. It was just such a good feeling to walk around the school with money in my pocket. And later that afternoon, I went right back out to rob someone else. Once I got better at robbing, it didn't take me all day anymore because then I knew the best spots. I could identify the best victims a lot faster. That's what I liked about robbing it and was one of the reasons that I never thought about hustling. Hustling on the corner took too fucking long. You just had to sit there all day. There was nothing you could do as a dealer to make the base heads come to you any faster. So I always thought, why don't I let you hustle all day and get that money? Then I'll come around at the end of your shift and just rob you. Then I'd have the same money it took you all day to make and would have earned it in less than 2 minutes. By November of my freshman year, I had totally stopped going to class. But that didn't mean I stopped coming around to school. Now that I was steady robbing, Yonkers High became a great place to get it on. You know that kid right there? Is he cool? I'd ask someone I knew before going up to a potential victim. I was ready to bang on anybody I saw. It didn't matter. One time I took this kid named Al B's furry Kango. Yo, Al, let me see that. What's up, D? Let me see your Kango. Oh shit, this hat is hot, man. Word. All right, Al, now you can walk. Huh? What are you talking about? You ain't getting this shit back, Al. Now get up out of here. I had Blackie with me. I used to bring him to school with me every day. He was my running partner and he was always ready to bite somebody. So when Al didn't want to listen, I just turned to my dog. Get him. On command, Blackie jumped up and bit Al on the back of his leg. He was holding on tight, so it took Al a second to pull his leg out of my boy's jaws. Then when Al started running away, Blackie just kept chasing him down the street. It's not like I kept my dog on a leash or anything. I used to put Blackie on bags all the time. I just taught him to grab anything that was in someone's hand. One morning, an old lady came up to the two of us while we were walking down Linden Street. Oh, what a nice dog, she said, bending down to pet him. All of a sudden, Blackie grabbed the lady's bag in his mouth. Get it, boy! The lady was so startled. Oh, oh my! Blackie and I just ran down the street, his tail wagging back and forth, me laughing. You did good today, boy. No more hot dogs out of the freezer, okay? Today you get dog food in a bowl. Whenever Blackie did good, I made sure to bless him when we got back up to the roof, and he loved Alpo. I hated to admit it, but that stuff did smell kind of good. When I opened the can, I was always like, maybe if shit ever gets too hard. After a while, my robbing and stealing started giving me a new reputation around the school. Because of my beatboxing, I was called DMX now. And kids knew just to give it up when they saw me. Oh, here comes this nigga again. Yeah, y'all know what time it is. Who got what? Just me and my dog. No mask, no gun. It was crazy because robbing really gave me a rush. Just before the robbery, my palms would start sweating and my throat would get dry. My heart would beat faster and my mind would start to race. Sometimes halfway through the robbery, I would have to stop and take a breath like, "Oh shit, I'm going through it again. Okay, yeah, motherfucker." Then I would just zone out. The nervousness, the danger, it was the strongest feeling that I had ever experienced. I just felt it everywhere. So I made it my job. I did my robberies on a schedule, just like niggas hustle, but I was straight stick up. I'd rob 3 times a day, before school, after school, and on the late night. That way, there would be 3 different groups of people to choose from. The morning shift was always really crowded, so that's when I had to do the pressure type of robbery. Just walk up the same way as someone on their way to school and push up on their back. That worked good. Or I just go down to the corner store where the kids with money always were. Shorty looks like he got $5. That's probably enough to get me through the morning. After school was cool because then you didn't have all the people going to work around everywhere. You just had to be careful that none of the kids hanging out late so you catch somebody behind that tree. Then there was the evening, like 7 p.m. I robbed mostly older people at night. They usually had more money on them anyway, and it was more of a rush catching somebody twice your age. Whenever I caught the last groups of people coming home from Getty Square, I hit it big. 3 times a day was how I got down for a long time, and I was always a face to face robbery nigga, straight up. There were many other ways I could have robbed something, but I never wanted to do it any other way. I was just more comfortable robbing somebody in the flesh. Maybe because of the time these cats asked me to help them rob a house, and I was so scared I wanted to just snatch the VCR and run. I wasn't comfortable because I didn't know who was in that house, and I didn't know what was in that house. I could have been in the back room, and the owner could have been in the front bedroom with a burner under his pillow. Or maybe the owner could have come back from walking his dog or something and popped me in my head. Yo, let's get the fuck out of here. I just kept yelling at the other guys. You never really know the details about a place you're trying to steal from. Oh, I can get out of this window, you say to yourself, not knowing that that window has been nailed shut for years. And you can't say anything to someone if you're in their house with all types of TVs in your arms. You're just busted, and they can do whatever they want to do and be 100% right. So I learned pretty quickly that I wasn't a thief. I wasn't going to steal anything. And I already knew that I didn't like to hustle or sell drugs. Me, I was going to take something. You want to come to school with the new Adidas with the fat laces? Let me get that. The little silver chain with your name on it, or the raccoon hat or sheepskin coat? I'm taking all that from you, Holmes, because I ain't got none of that. I ain't got a sheepskin. At Yonkers High, if you were one of the roughnecks that didn't go to class all day, you hung out in a spot called the castle. It was like a small stone structure with a few benches inside it that sat on the far end of the baseball field, out of sight of the main building. Most days you could find 5 to 10 upperclassmen chilling up there, smoking and shooting dice. Some of them knew me for doing the beatbox with Reddy Ron, but most of them just knew me for all my robbing and stealing. Whichever way, because I had become so reckless as a freshman, it was like I had the respect of a senior. Sometimes I would go over to gamble with them, but I didn't like to see anyone having fun without me, so me and Blackie would often just disrupt the game. Other times I would go up there to sell some of the stuff I stole, and since everyone at Yonkers High was more concerned about putting on a fashion show than they were about anything else, selling shit was a good hustle. Back then, you needed a Kango with the matching bomber jacket to be fly, or a big puffy hat with the flaps that came down. Anyone with a lumberjack shirt or a triple fat goose coat was always good. Sheepskins were the hottest commodities. I wore them for a day or two just to let folks know that I came across one. Then I would sell it for $50 or even $100 if I could. Sometimes the price would depend on what I had to do to get it. Once I caught a blue sheepskin by rolling up on this dude and his Puerto Rican girlfriend. The problem was that I had to smack the shit out of the girl to get the coat because she wouldn't stop talking shit. Yo, get your girl, I told him, and he couldn't control her. He was acting like a bitch when she started getting too aggressive in my face. I had to hit her. She looked a little younger than me too, so I wasn't proud of that one. But I made sure I got a good price for the coat. That's probably why I never liked messing with girls my age or younger, because they always acted too silly. I remember one day after school, this young girl was like, "I'll hit you in your nuts." Now, girls always say that when you're playing, but she did it right away. She didn't even wait for me to answer her. She just banged me with her forearm. It hurt so much I stayed on the ground for like 10 minutes just laying there in the fetal position. My eyes were closed, my nose was running. I couldn't catch my breath. At that age, you really don't know whether or not you're holding, where you stand within a male community. And I was messed up. "Leave me alone. It hurts. I just want to go to sleep." When I finally stood up, it felt like I had to shit, but I couldn't get anything out. I just threw up all over the place and promised myself that I would never ever mess with a young girl. LaShawn Johnson was in the 12th grade when I was a freshman. She used to come over to my house every day, watch TV, and play Monopoly with my sisters. It was cool because LaShawn was grown enough to know when her parents weren't going to be home and wasn't shy about taking her clothes off. I got points on the block just because she was older, but she was fine too. And normally, if they weren't on the menudo shit, bad bitches like her liked the dudes who sold drugs, hustlers who had a lot of clothes and drove around on scooters in the summer. In the mid 80s, hustlers always had the 1998 Oldsmobiles, oh, had the 98 Oldsmobiles with the banging systems. The same cars that the cab services in Harlem used to use with the tinted windows, fat rims, and white walls. And they always took their girls to City Island to eat shrimp for dinner. But that wasn't me. I was the type that would catch a nigga for his cash before he went to City Island. See, the touch of class cab pull up and be like, "Hey, buddy, let me talk to you for a minute." But for whatever reason, LaShawn was down with me. She even knew that I had formed a little robbery crew with my two partners, Nick and Reg. But she didn't care. In the hood, it was easy to find someone who would roll with you to do your dirt. But while everyone talked about getting some money, when you got out on the street, a lot of guys would front. They would be scared and stand around. That's why I loved Nick and Reg. Because with them, there was never any hesitation. It was just, "You ready? Okay, let's get 'em." And they knew how much I loved it. If they ever went out robbing with me, they knew they'd have to make it up to me quick because I was just on it like that and never wanted to miss a chance to feel that rush. That night, we needed $100 so Reg could get his little brother a bike for Christmas. He had just got a job, so now his folks were putting pressure on him to start buying things for everybody. Whenever project parents found out you started working, it was always, "Son, can you get," or "Baby, we need this." Reg was feeling the heat, and I liked his little brother, so I changed into this blue jogging tracksuit that I always liked to wear to go robbing, and the three of us decided to go on a spree to get the money he needed. It didn't start off too good. In our first hour, we robbed three different people but came back with only $6 to show for it. One lady we caught, her wig came off and everything, and only 32 cents in her pocket. So we stopped at LaShawn's house and took a break. This was the night I tried mescaline for the first time. Red said you should drink a beer right afterward, so I guzzled down a 40 ounce, and a little after 8 p.m. we went back out. After a few minutes, we saw this woman walking down South Broadway. She was wearing white stockings and matching white shoes, so we figured she worked in the hospital downtown and we started following her. 10 blocks later, she stopped for a moment near the bus stop right down the hill from School Street. Now was the time. Me, Nick, and Reg had this robbing technique called the death run. After you walk behind a person at the same pace for a while, You would put about a half a block between you and then start to jog toward them. You had to jog softly enough so that not too many people noticed you running, and time it so that your victim wouldn't hear you coming up on them until you were right behind them. But once you started that jog, the death run was on. There was no turning back. Boom! One of us would hit the person low exactly at the same time. The other person grabbed their bag. It was like a football play, and it worked every time with either a man or a woman because once a person falls like that, their arms automatically raise up to protect themselves from hitting the ground, and their bag will normally fly right off. You're not thinking about your bag. All you're thinking about is breaking your fall. But nothing would go smooth that night. The woman wasn't tall, about 5'4", but she was husky and she had on this big, thick wool coat, one of those grandma joints that closed real tight. I was doing the grabbing when she got hit. She fell to the ground hard. The problem was that she held onto her purse. Let it go, I yelled at her. The lady must have had the super grips in her pocketbook because even though I kept shaking her wildly, she kept holding on with one hand. Now it was a scene. The people at the bus stop started screaming. Come on, lady, I yelled at her again. I ended up dragging her into the middle of the street. I kept pulling and pulling. Then, while I was still yanking at her purse, I saw my mother coming down the hill. She must have decided to go to work early that night. Oh shit, I better hurry up. Come on! Finally, the strap on her bag broke and I got the purse and started running toward Main Street after my two partners. I could hear my mother's voice behind me screaming for help with the rest of the people. I never turned around. One evening, after a more successful robbery, I rolled back into School Street and heard this song playing out of one of the ground floor apartments. I didn't see who was playing it, but this was the second or third time that I had heard the song, and I thought how much I really liked it. I didn't listen to the words then, but there was something about the record that drew me into it. It was called Silver Shadow. I remember gazing on those quiet nights. The stars were as bright as they could be, wondering if things would ever go right and if there was a spot up there for me. Yeah, that's the shit right there. Chapter 12. Turn Out the Lights. 1985 was the best year of my life. I had survived my time in group home. I was back in Yonkers. I had a dog I called my own. 1985 was the year I started robbing, running, fucking, the year I first heard Silver Shadow, and the year I bought my first pair of Timberlands. But 1986, well, that was something else. It was Peanut's fault. He lived in Building 10. He had been talking shit to me all morning, so me and Blackie chased him right upstairs into his hallway. His mother heard us arguing and came out with a frying pan in her hand. So I went back downstairs to catch him later. 10 minutes later, though, the police rolled up. When they saw me and Blackie posted in the front, they drew their guns and opened their car door halfway to shield themselves. Put the dog up against the fence. My first instinct was to run, but I didn't know if Blackie could keep up with me, and I didn't want them to start shooting at my dog. Tie your dog against the fence and step this way. I did what they said. They put me in the back of the police car, and when I asked them what was going on, they said the pound was on its way. Someone had called in a complaint about my dog. When the handlers arrived, they put a loop around Blackie's neck to try to catch him, but he was big and strong, and when my dog saw that I was getting out of the police car, he started going wild. They couldn't pull him in the paddy wagon. Blackie just kept barking. Yeah, boy, get him, boy, I yelled at him from behind the window. I wasn't going to let him take my dog. I wasn't going to let them take my dog. The handlers wrestled with Blackie for 10 more minutes. Then I saw one of them nod to a police officer. Everybody, please stand back. They hooked Blackie to the fence again, and when I saw one of the police officers move directly in front of him, I started screaming, No! Don't kill my dog! No! 2 shots later, Blackie was dead. They shot him right in front of the building. That's why I hate Peanut to this day, because he got my dog killed. Fucking bitch. In 1986, though, being broke wasn't my only problem. A few years before, Reddy Ron introduced me to something that was far more damaging to my life and my spirit than not having money. Until then, I drank 40s with cats on corners, smoked whatever weed I came across, and experimented with bullshit drugs like mescaline. When the mood arose, like the day me, Nick, and Reg went out on that robbing spree. But that didn't make me much more than your average project nigga. There were no lingering effects of getting drunk one night off a bottle of malt liquor or passing a blunt with my niggas from School Street. But when Reddy Ron spoke of the great high I could get from a wooly, the new thing on the block, he didn't tell me how differently it would affect my life. He didn't tell me of the war that I would have to fight to kill my desire for one of the most addictive drugs on the street. He didn't tell me how quickly I would ruin what little was left of my relationship with my mother, my sisters, and even my uncles. When I smoked a blunt laced with crack cocaine, he didn't tell me how much I would suffer, how wrong that was. I fucked up. Collie found out about my problem the day I went into the shoebox he kept in his closet and took some of his stash. My uncle occasionally hustled to put some money in his pocket, mostly nickel or dime bags of weed, but every now and then he would flip the harder stuff. What do you mean you fucked up? He answered me back. Then he saw what I had taken. Collie and me had never had a fight. We would disagree and argue like brothers, but we would never come to blows. That day, I could feel his anger and disappointment fire at me like a shotgun blast. He said he knew it wasn't me. I told him it wasn't a big deal. But it got worse. Now I had another reason to rob. Not only was I trying to eat, trying to keep some money in my pocket, but now I also had a habit to feed. It didn't help that my aunts were also struggling, or that I bumped heads with my Uncle Pinky in the same apartments on Ravine where I was getting high. At one point, Pinky lived next door to one of the buildings that served as my main stomping ground. Sometimes he would come and try to take me out of the hallways I was in, tried to pull me out of hell. It was never easy. I never talked to anyone about my problem, but I couldn't hide it. One day I saw my little sister Shayla walking home from school. She must have been no more than 9 or 10 years old. I didn't think she saw me. Earl. I couldn't let her see me like this. Earl, I know that's you. I had to hide my eyes. I wasn't the older brother she thought I was. Go home, Shayla. Earl, please come upstairs. Please come upstairs and I'll give you something to eat. Talk to me for a minute. No, not right now, girl. I'm not coming upstairs right now. But at my darkest moments, I did go upstairs. These were the times I ran out of money, the times someone's wallet wasn't enough to pay my bill. The problem was that I knew whomever I needed to pay would accept anything that I could give them. VHS tapes, shoes, sneakers, even giant sized bottles of bleach or laundry detergent. I took them. I would lift coats out of my mother's closet, sweaters from my sisters, or swipe old clothes of my own that was still in my room. Anything that would get me closer to that next high. It didn't matter to me. There was a voice in my head, louder and more powerful than anything I had ever heard before, and it wouldn't stop yelling. A week after Blackie's murder, I walked into the lunchroom of Yonkers High School with a sawed-off shotgun taped to my leg. The gun came from the floor up to my knee, so it made me walk stiff, like I was crippled. I didn't give a fuck about nothing or nobody. I was ready to rob anybody I could. Niggas thought I was bluffing. What up, man? What? It can happen. Run your fucking pockets. I came home with about $4. A few days later, I was behind bars. It was dark and hell is hot.